He's Waj Ali. Got a book that comes out the 25th of January. Go back to where you came from. Do you mean where he got his name from? Lego abilities amaze until his wife stops his spending spree. He'll dismantle your political stance on a Zoom call in his jacket, shirt, and tie, and his underpants. His powers of thoughtful discussion bring nuanced perspective that can't help but draw us in. It's Wednesday.
It's actually really good. I mean, it's like a catchy jingle. It works. I'm not just saying that because it makes me sound so dope, and it's like the first soundtrack I've ever had, but it's actually really good.
It really, really is. It's like, but it's longer than the opening to Silver Spoons. Speaking of Ricky Schroeder, big fan.
What did you know that Ricky Schroeder would turn to the dark side when we?
I interviewed him at Sirius, and he was there to promote some veterans benefit, and I was always good for a veterans issue organization benefit. I did a lot of work with veterans, and so I was like, yeah, I mean, I grew up watching him on Silver Spoons, and I thought he was good on that NYPD.
Yeah,
and then he came in, but yeah, he had not physically a twitch, but you know when someone's like, oh, this guy's gone. Like he said some weird shit to me on the way to the elevator.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like some weird right-wing, like, patriot bullshit. It's like, oh, man, this dude's really out there.
Yeah, you could always tell there's like an unrest in the eyes and like a radicalization that happens slowly but surely. It's very interesting how it happens to some of these Hollywood folks. Like you think they'd probably turn on maybe it's because they feel rejected from the community that embrace them. And like it's like a scorned son who then has to go far right because they go hard right. Like remember who was the guy who was like the lame the guy? Gosh, he's not Xena's dope. The lame dude, Sorbo. What's his name?
Oh yeah, Hercules. Sorbo. I interviewed him too.
Was he a freak also?
Yeah. He and his wife came in and they were real Christian. Like,
it's fine to be Christian, but why do you have to be a freak? That's like
no, not the good kind of Christian.
Yeah, the nutty. And then I remember I had a crush on Buffy, the first Buffy. And this is for you old timers. It was not Sarah Michelle Gellar, who we also had a crush on. The first Buffy was Christy Swanson in the movie version, starring her and the late, great Luke Perry. And then she also turned out to be hardcore nuts. And she was anti-vaxxer. And of course, she got COVID. Too bad for her.
How do you feel about that? Like that guy, Marcus Lamb, who was proselytizing anti-vaccine and used ivermectin, and then he got COVID and died. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Thoughts and prayers. He has returned home.
Yeah. And
I mean, I don't like to be I don't take joy. Let me put it this way. In all seriousness, I don't take joy in anyone's death. I don't sit there and like applaud. It's sad, but it's a preventable death, number one. And furthermore, the privilege that he had and the platform that he used to mislead millions of people. And we don't have the data on this, but I'm just going to bet as a betting man that other people took his word and took a dewormer instead of a vaccine that saves lives, and they probably also got sick and died. And so to quote Batman at the end of Batman Begins, I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you either.
Right. I love it. Oh, I love that you quoted Batman. I really like that. I've been thinking about you, Waj, since last week when Lauren Boebert did that killer stand-up clip. And I kept saying to myself, I was thinking about Muslims, but then I was thinking about like funny Muslims that I know. And a lot of the Muslims I know are funny because I met them through doing comedy. So like Mayzoon Zaid or Dino Badal or whatever. I was like, I bet you Waj has something. But so my question is, have you ever just like put on a backpack with nothing in it and just gotten on elevators with the whites just to mess with us?
The funny thing is, in a world where we didn't fetishize guns and like people like Lauren Boebert, who I'm convinced would love, like I'm convinced she gets hard off of like seeing gun pictures. Like that's what gets her.
Yeah.
That's WAP for her. And like, this might be too blunt, but she's a freak. Like I feel like she'd make love to every gun she could.
Yes.
So when you have like an open carry Lauren Boebert and like freaks like this, in all seriousness, that I would be the one to do that joke, like and say psych. But at the end of the psych, I'd be a chalk line. And I'll give you a quick example, 2 quick examples. I was in New York, like years after, I'd just be a chalk line. Like that's Wajat Ali. And like you could see some of the chalk line on the elevator floor, and then you could see some of the chalk line on the 7 button. That was a piece of watch there. I remember I was in New York, and you know how sometimes you go to like an event, it's like I had a carry-on and I need just some place to like check the bag. So go to a hotel, I'm like, listen, I got a speech. This is my carry-on bag. I'll give you $10. Can you give me like, a ticket with the concierge? The guy looks at me and goes, there's not a bomb in it, is there? I'm like, are you serious? He goes, I got to ask. We go to Netherlands. It's me, two brown dudes. We're there for some conference, professors at Duke. And this is our hotel, right? And so we had to check in like at 12. We got there a little bit early. So we're like, we don't want to sit here and wait. Let's just we'll give you our bags and we'll come back at 1. The lady looks at us and goes, are there any bombs in the bags? And I'm like, are you serious? She goes, yes. I'm like, yes, this is what we do. We bring bombs to the hotel that we're staying at. She goes, are you serious? He goes, no, of course not. There's no bombs. We're here for a conference. And I kind of, my personality, I think like yours is you take the wise ass approach. I don't get too angry. But I'm telling you, man, these two guys who I was with, who are these very spiritual academic types, were just so angry. Yeah. And if we literally then confronted them in this day and age, and there was a Lauren Boebert or a Kyle Rittenhouse or a McCloskey, what would happen to a guy like me? I had to stand my ground because this goddamn darky was he was joking about bringing bombs in his suitcase. I had a legitimate question. I asked this darky. It's a legitimate question. And he got aggressive. I had to take my gun and shoot this darky down. And then he'd probably get like his two cousins who would like vouch for him and like the police officer, just like we saw with the Ahmaud Arbery case. The friggin' prosecutor had worked with one of the killers. It'd be like that. So you asked me a very simple question. That's the answer.
I'm working on like a joke. I don't think I can do it because like not everybody pays such close attention to a trial, but like those guys, McMichael, whatever, that killed Ahmaud Arbery, were such redneck looking guys. I just want to do a joke where like I'm a jury member and they walk into the court and I'm just like, guilty.
Right. Just look at that face.
He is guilty of killing a black kid from his pickup truck. Yes, no need for any arguments or witnesses. Redbeard.
I see his racist bone. It's shining. The racist bone is shining. He's like Terry is like, damn it. I tried to hide the shine.
It's his femur.
Yeah, his femur. That's the reality, man. This is the post 9/11 reality for many Muslims or those people who look Muslim, because it's not just Muslims. I want the listeners, because people say I'm thinking about doing this piece for Medium called "Fuck Them Muslims." That's gonna be the title of the piece, and there's gonna be like just kind of tongue in cheek, "Fuck them Muslims," right? Like it's the last bipartisan refuge for Islamophobes, whether you're liberal or you're conservative, especially post 9/11, the war on terror. And I think people don't realize that the effect of this casual normalization of anti-Muslim bigotry has a profound impact on your fellow citizens, many of them who are, wait for it, innocent Muslim women, mothers, children who wear the hijab, and also poor Sikh men and women who aren't even Muslim. First hate crime after 9/11 was a Sikh guy, Balbir Singh, a couple of days later in Mesa, Arizona, not even in New York, and the white supremacists, and by the way, these racists are not the most nuanced folks, shot and killed this poor immigrant gas station owner because he said, your people brought down the towers. Yeah. So there's you asked me a very simple question, and I wish in a perfect world I could be like Steve Martin and Roxanne and rattle off 20 insults at a bar and like have the last laugh. Well, but
I think that it's what she said, what Lauren Boebert said, and the backpack and the Muslim thing, and hearing Ilhan Omar speak about it at a press conference, and then this weekend she was on State of the Union with Jay Tapper, sure. and it was really, that was heart-wrenching to watch. So we can joke about it, and we are, and I wanted to joke about it with you, but like it's easy to move on when it doesn't affect you, when it's not you, and it's not your kids, they don't look like you. But it probably was a little bit more of a for you and your family. It was probably a little deeper impact this week than it was for me and my family. I was hurt like a 6 out of 10, so it bothered me for 2 days. But it bothered you like a 10 out of 10 for like the rest of the week and time in your life, because I can just move back on and mix in with the insurgents.
Yeah, you could be a moderate white or even insurgent white, and you'll get a press conference from the traitor tots, or who I call the Goldiglocks.
Yes,
the fascist five.
Yes, read all of Wajahat Daily Beast articles, and then also I suggest listening to them. The dailybeast.com has this function where you can listen. However, the AI person they have that sounds like a real person has not bothered to learn to pronounce your name.
Yeah, which is hilarious, right? Like, what you're at, Ollie? Well, this week's article on the fascist fund.
Horrible. It's like Wajihu, ha ha ha. Like,
Yeah.
what
Warbalot Molly. Whatchamacallit, Ali.
a lot.
Warbalot.
It was really weird when it called you Ellie Mistal.
Yeah. It's like Maz Jobrani. And they're like, you can hear like you can hear the record, the freaking audio section in the background.
Oh,
Goes, that's not Maz, that's Dino Baitullah. Like, all right.
It's just a racist or lazy AI. It's like, is it a Persian? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I had a joke about this yesterday because some like troll is like, have you ever seen this is a true story. Like troll's like, I've never seen Mehdi Hassan and Wajahat Ali in the same room. And I quote tweeted it, and I'm like, we are the same person. We're also Ali Velshi and Anand Giridharadas and Hari Kondabolu.
I like that kind of racism. I think that's funny.
We have to respond with humor, right? Like Mel Brooks came out with a book, which I'm trying to interview Mel Brooks. I actually had interviewed him once before. It was like,
really?
Yeah, I interviewed him for Al Jazeera America. And the way I got, that was like you know how you have a list? I'm sure we've talked about this before. You have like a list of interview subjects, like your top 10, right? So Mel Brooks, since high school, I was like, I got to get this guy to high school. I don't know why. Now I'm like, I got to get this guy to Berkeley. So in Al Jazeera America, when I was co-hosting, Max came. Max is his son who wrote World War Z. And I was telling everyone at Al Jazeera, I'm like, zombies are going to be huge. It's going to get us ratings on this network that gets no ratings. And Max is a smart guy. Everyone thought it was shit. We brought Max. He flew in because he just respected Al Jazeera and the work that we're doing. That was our highest rated show. I stayed in touch with Max. I'm like, yo, I would love to get your dad. And he goes, just keep sending me emails. So I kept bothering him. And then one day, I can't believe I haven't told you the story. One day, Max sends me this email late at night. Who's opened this email? I opened this email. It's like a AVI file. I opened the AVI file. It's Mel Brooks staring at me. And he goes, Al Jazeera, fine, I'll do it. And then 2 weeks later, we do a 30-minute like just segment with Mel Brooks, and I just make the guy laugh a couple of times.
Where is it?
Well, Al Jazeera being that friggin' shit show of a network it was based on the contract that we interpreted and or received from Al Gore. They have like nothing. They have nothing left.
Come on, it doesn't. It's not. You don't have a file?
Nope. And the file was like then after I left, they took the file, but it was like a really smart 30-minute show. And the reason I mentioned Mel Brooks is because Mel Brooks, as a young Jewish guy, refused to back down to anti-Semitism. So yeah, he was irascible and witty, but he's like, I'm going to fight back. And he said, if you can neuter and laugh at the fascist, you rob them of their power. And I feel like humor used wisely is a way for us to respond and fight back. You know, sometimes humor is necessary to really engage with this darkness, this racism. This evil.
No. Like, dude, listen, if I'll be your friend the rest of your life, and if I ever see you losing your edge in your humor, I mean, I just read your recent Daily Beast columns, which have it. Your book is filled with it. And I mean, I'll just come down there and punch you in the goddamn face. I mean, you have to. It's exactly what you just said. I mean, Mel Brooks. I mean, there's so many. Viktor Frankl, I think. I mean, you know. So. By the way, do you ever talk to Jonathan Greenblatt?
Once in a while, yeah. We text and we message once in a while.
One of the most powerful things I ever saw was you and him presented on stage to young people at Aspen. That was amazing.
And you remember that? That was last second. They literally paired me with Jonathan, and they're like, "It's young folks."
It was like the two of you had tag teamed like your whole careers. The chemistry was preposterous. I thought you guys might have hooked up earlier or something.
No. That was before. I think that was, or maybe it was the Sabbath. So Jonathan.
It was Aspen.
Yeah.
Aspen, whatever state.
That was literally, they paired me and Jonathan. It was the first time I'm meeting him. I'm like, yo, what are we gonna do? I came up with an idea, and he goes, okay. He goes, just run with it, and he ran with it. Yep. And we kind of just tag teamed, and the kids were engaging with us, and we asked the kids to yell out the worst thing they've been called. Remember that? And they just shouted all the terrible things. And then we tried to like see that like the strength and powers and how you deneuter it and how you like booby trap it and you fight back. And it was really good because you were moderating it, and I thought you had the best gig. Because for Aspen, for those of you who don't know, Aspen is called, I'm not making this up, Billionaire's Mountain. It's where rich people go to get away from rich people. It's like where the filthy FU, it's like there's so much money. It's not FU, it's like F me. Like that's how rich it is. And and it's very white. And Aspen Ideas is a great festival. It's been nice to us, but it's very white. And then so Pete was moderating this section where they brought all these kids from all across the country, and that's where you had like the most diversity, the most youth. And I thought, like, I don't know, man, I thought that had the best vibe of the entire Aspen Ideas Festival.
No doubt about it, because you're around young people who show promise. It's so much more inspiring than being around a bunch of old people, even if they're prominent, diplomats or scholars or academics. It's just is a different vibe. Jonathan Greenblatt, by the way, is the director of the Anti-Defamation League. So a Muslim and a Jew on stage doing a bit together as if they've been working together on the road in the Catskills for a generation was pretty impressive.
Can I share this Petraeus story with you, Ruka? I've never shared this story publicly.
About
Aspen? I was going to write in a book, but I'll just share it on your podcast. All right. So we're at Aspen.
Thanks for
because literally when I shared the story, people are like, that needs to go in a book. And I put it in the book that you're reading, hopefully still reading Pete, because Pete hasn't finished this book. I gave it to him like months ago. He was one of the first people to receive it, but I'm not bitter. It was in the first draft, but I had to cut it for length. So this is Petraeus, right? General Petraeus, a man who was in charge of like our military and Central Asian strategy, spent time in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and then kind of, got humiliated through this scandal with his mistress and, had giving access to information. And at that time, it was like the first year of the Trump administration, and he was angling. It was very clear. He was angling for a job, so he's holding his punches. It was very disappointing. He was on a panel with Julia Yaffe and Dave Throtkov, and David and Julia were like saying all the smart things, warning about what was going to happen, and you would expect Petraeus to come in, but he didn't say anything. So Petraeus is like lumbering around. I see him, like this man just walking around. And he goes, "I'm looking for the Facebook tent." And you know how I am. I'm not intimidated by anyone. If you want me to meet like anybody, I'll be your wingman. I'll be your goose. So my friend who works at DHS, who was with me, is Afghan American. He goes, "Oh, it's Petraeus. I'm at DHS. I would like to meet him." I'm like, "Sure, Petraeus." So I go up to him like I'm his best friend, introduce myself, Haris. He literally stares at me, cranes his neck left and right looking at us, and then goes, "I spent time in Pakistan. I miss the melodious accent of the people." And Haris, who's Afghan, takes a piss out of me and goes, "Wajah's first language was Urdu. He has a beautiful accent." And I'm like, "It's okay. I don't want to." "Wajah, do the accent for Petraeus." And the Petraeus cranes his neck slowly towards me, eyes widening, and just like waits for it. And so then I do this bit of it, like an aggrieved Pakistani uncle in Karachi who takes the piss out of U.S. military in the war on terror and talks about how they like caused more chaos than what they did. I just did this bit, and he sits there smiling, and he turns his neck and then goes to my Afghan American friend and says, "And you are?" He says, "Afghan American." He goes, "Can you do the accent?" And I'm like, "Haris, my friend, was a refugee. Do the accent. He speaks the language. Haris, go for it." And Haris, his face gets ready. He goes, I forgot. I have to go now." So then we use humor since we're so used to it. We internalize this and we're like, that was wild. And we share this story. We thought people would laugh. And I remember there were folks from The Atlantic, the magazine.
Yeah.
I told them, their face dropped, and they were just like your face right now. They're like, "Holy shit, that's terrible."
Because that whole scene out there was a whole
minstrel show.
I know that you love Jeff Goldberg. I love Jeff Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. But Aspen is in many parts his. He kind of, I mean, like, there's this billionaire out there. What's her name? The lady from the Fortune for the.
Oh, yeah. Freakish.
Yeah.
I've been to her house. Yeah.
Did you go to her house?
Well, because Jeff had his anniversary party, so he invited me to the house, and I'm like, this place is absurd.
Yeah. So they have a house. They have a lake. They have a. I thought this was crazy. I don't know if you noticed this, but they had their own clouds.
Really?
And I thought it was crazy. They had these people that moved clouds in and out of. So I was at
all like Mexicans too.
They were Mexicans moving clouds to and fro.
Mexicans can do anything in this country.
Cumulus crowds, they really can. And I was at the cocktail party. I remember feeling anxious because I didn't have somebody to talk to, and I literally physically bumped into three people: Petraeus, McChrystal, and Callista Gingrich. And then I actually was so aroused at that trio, I didn't think I could top it and left.
So I'll do a one-up on that. So Jeff was one of the people who heard the story, and he was just like, "Wow, man, that's terrible." But I was giving unsolicited advice to Sally Yates at the time. And Sally Yates, if you remember, got fired for not implementing the illegal Muslim ban. She was the attorney general. And Sally Yates, by the way, look how an awkward person I am. I think my awkwardness saves me. I go up to Sally Yates. Who am I? I'm nobody. I say, you have the most excellent posture I've ever seen. This is remarkable. And she goes, yes, I've been told that. He goes, I slouch. I don't know how you do it. First thing I've ever said to this woman I've ever met in my life, Sally Yates, like, who's a hero at this time, right? And then I say, Sally, you need to write a book. And she goes, I've been thinking about it, but who am I? I'm like, your story is and your journey is very inspirational. So that she like leans in, goes, what would I write about? I'm giving her these tips. Guess who just comes in and just, it was like a jinn. A jinn just came in from the clouds. The Mexicans lowered her down and the crowd parted. Barbara Streisand just comes in, somehow like goes through me like T1000 liquid metal, takes Sally Yates and whisks her away. And I'm like, this place is crazy. And then later at that night, you and me performed comedy in the weirdest stand-up comedy act like club that you and I have ever performed at.
Well, I did it every year there for maybe 5 years, and that night in the audience there were more billionaires than any other year, and it was Streisand and Michael Eisner and others. Yeah.
And then we bombed. All of us bombed. Trayvon bombed. I was 50-50. You were pretty good, and then they took them 2 hours to get drunk, and then they finally laughed for Michael Che and Colin Jost at the end.
Well, yeah. That was exactly. Maz killed, I think. Was that the year that Maz?
No. That was the year where like everyone just died, and then
Maz Jobrani did a joke about one of the funniest jokes ever. He said they lost their little girl in Aspen, downtown Aspen, at the little playground. They couldn't find their little girl, and Maz had this terrible pang that any parent feels when they can't find their kid. And then all of a sudden he was soothed by the idea that if she's going to get kidnapped in Aspen, she'll have a better life.
That's a fantastic joke. Maybe it's better. It's like that movie, not Gone Girl. It's like Gone Baby Gone. It's like the Ben Affleck movie, right?
I never saw that movie.
Oh yeah. It's like similar. Where like Morgan Freeman, there's an elderly couple, and they're the ones who end up kidnapping like this girl, and like they're like, she'll have a better life than us. And Casey Affleck's like, no, it's wrong. And at the end of the movie, he brings her back to his mom, who's like a deadbeat. And then you're kind of like, oh, maybe.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, spoilers.
So Maz probably is like, maybe we should call off the hunt.
Do you know Maz?
I know Maz is. I just sat for his podcast last week, and Maz is going to be joining me for the LA book launch. So Maz is going to be.
Oh, great! I want you both then to join me on this podcast, because the three I adore. Like, he and I are in love. And
you're two bald men too, so your child would either be bald or be really hairy, like two extremes.
Yeah, I would never marry him. I would marry his wife though. She's great. And then, do you know Tim Wise?
I know Tim. We've only been on an MSNBC segment once together.
All right. Well, I want to have you on with him too. And also, Jared H. Sexton keeps wanting to get the band back together, so I should mention that.
I feel bad for Jared because I feel like I read his tweets, and Jared reminds me of like me, like in the sense I always joke that if I was in a Bourne movie, I'd be the guy in the first 10 minutes who like finds out the master plan and tries to run and give it to Jason like in the subway, and then like right before I give it to him, like the sniper kills me, and I'm like, so close. But I feel like maybe I'd go to the coma. I feel like Jared's the guy who warns everyone, publishes it, writes a book, like literally gives you the memo, and then like he's seen as a crazy person and killed.
I cannot wait to get together with him and have you explain that plot. He is going to be dead at the end of that, metaphorically.
No, metaphorically. But don't you see him as a guy? He goes, I'm telling you, everybody, this is how it goes down. I'm telling you. They're like, that crazy Jared.
He's riding, he and like Sarah Kendzior are riding on like some white stallion, into town, screaming, the British are coming, except it's the Russians or whatever. And they're screaming, and they've got sirens, and they're ringing bells. And then you come running in, kind of looking like a poor Oliver Twist like Muslim kid. And you're also screaming, but not on a white horse, because you can't be, because you're not white.
You know what? Exactly. And what happens? The only reason I live is because they're like, no darkies allowed. I'm like, what? And then like they stop me from coming in, and then they shoot Sarah and Jared. But I'm glad you mentioned Sarah, because all these I was thinking about this yesterday without bitterness. Atlantic's publishing a lot of good articles. You had Robert Kagan and Neocon in Washington Post with that viral article like last month. Yeah. And I sat there and I'm reading these articles warning about the end of democracy, and even this latest one that went viral in Atlantic. which is a big piece, the author himself admits that he was wrong. He got it wrong, right? And I sit there and I think, I'm like, man, me, Sarah especially, Jared especially, all the people of color, man, for 3 or 4 years. Like, why does it take a wrong white dude for America to listen? But whatever, man, if that's what it takes.
Well, I generally wait till all the people of color are screaming so loud that their voices are gone, and then I just wait for Josh Marshall and Chris Hayes to tell me what's what.
And then you're like, Josh is a good egg.
I know they both are, but it's like they're, who was it yesterday was kind of complaining about this? Liz Winstead was like about abortion. She's like, do you know I've got no voice left? I've been screening and warning about this. And now these guys jump on board and they start saying it. And they're like, can you believe it's happening? And she's like, yes.
Yes, women have been warning for years.
What do you think about that Supreme Court case argument last week?
I think they're going to kill it. I think it reminds me so much of that classic. I mean, I've used some exquisite pop cultural references. So I'll land on this one with the Peanuts cartoon where Charlie Brown sits there and tells Lucy, are you sure you're not going to lift the football this time? She goes, I'm not. Why don't you run and try to kick it? And each and every single time, right when he's about to kick it, she pulls the football and he falls on his ass, right? I feel like that's the Democrats in the majority in this country. Because remember, like Susan Collins, who's just a clown, but she's like, we asked, he assured us. Of course, Amy Barrett and Kavanaugh, all these people, quote unquote, gave assurances, but it's all bullshit. If you literally took their words, and I take these people literally and seriously, Roe is dead. And what they're going to do is basically neuter Roe, but give it enough of a comatose life to say that they didn't kill it. And they're going to punt it to the states. And then the states are just going to kill it. And then now you're going to have women essentially, going to the alleyways using hangers. And it's going to affect poor white women, poor black women, poor Native women, and poor Latino women. And the rich whites will get to go to Aspen for their abortions.
Oh, that's for sure. What do Muslims think about abortion? Is there a wide range of opinion on it?
Yes and no. We're not as nutty. For most of us, it's like, if you've noticed, we're never the ones like leading alongside the evangelical Christians, even on gay marriage, right? For us, it's kind of like do your own thing privately, but also for abortion, it's in case of like rape or death, you save the mom's life, you abort the baby. And also for traditional opinion, you have up to the first 3 months. And also then if you do abort, it's one of those situations where it's like looked down upon, but we're not obsessed with this. It's kind of those situations you keep it private. The traditional ruling is you have up to the first 3 months. If possible, then afterwards, try to, keep the baby. If it's the health risk to the mom or rape and incest, enough scholars have said, you can get rid of the baby, but it doesn't really animate us. It's really interesting. Like, it does not hijack our mindset the way it does the white evangelical Christians and white Catholics in this country. And we don't give a shit about, the funny thing is in this country is we love babies as soon as they're in the womb. And as soon as that baby comes out, it's like, pull yourself up from the bootstraps.
Yeah, baby is a lazy baby.
You lazy piece of shit, baby.
Baby is so, look at that baby over there. Just sitting there.
Yeah, useless.
Useless. What
Learn the code, baby. Learn the code.
What? Why do I have to pay for that baby's health care?
Dude, we're the only industrialized country that does not guarantee paid parental leave.
Yeah,
every time I say we hate mothers and kids, people are like, that's very harsh. We don't all guarantee paid parental leave. And we have the highest maternal mortality rate of industrial countries. And if you don't have healthcare, it's the most expensive country to have a kid, around $31,000.
There's forget minorities and lower income folks or whatever. There are so many pretty middle class, upper middle class, affluent 30-year-old white people that have one kid. Find out how much preschool is. That's right. It's more than their mortgage. And they legitimately, this is a document. I think I read this in the Atlantic, the data, you may have seen it. They're like, we can't have another kid. We can't afford preschool for 2 kids. And these are rich whites. These are well off. These are my wife and I, when our kids went to preschool. I mean, this shit is expensive as hell, but you pay for it if you have the money because you know how important it is, and it allows you to work, and you might make a little more money than you're paying out. But it's not true of most. We're not even talking about lower income people. Forget about race. Forget about anything.
Upper middle class, suburban parents, because people realize childcare is about as expensive as me working. So why don't you be the sole breadwinner, and I'll just stay home for the first 4 or 5 years. And then as we're talking about this, for those of you who want to watch my TED Talk was about the case for having children, but it was actually a Trojan horse basically talk about pronatal policies, because every year now since I've done that TED Talk, was like 2.5 years ago, Elon Musk, who's getting nuttier and nuttier, is now telling people to have more kids, because all the right-wing folks in this country are like, these lazy young folks aren't having kids, and our total fertility rate has dropped to 1.7. You're supposed to have 2.1 average kids per mom just to replace the previous generation. So we're at 1.7, the lowest ever. It means we're not having enough kids, and people are like, oh my God, China's not having enough kids, Japan, EU, US. This will be catastrophic for our economy. People are living older, our social security, the benefits, like it's just going to be a mess. So have more kids. But then forget young people, even like you said, us folks were like, I would love to have more kids. I can't afford it. It's not worth it. I can't afford to have kids. There's no paid parental leave. There's no free pre-K. My job doesn't pay me enough. F it.
Yep. Totally. And everybody's like, so many people making that decision. And I'm gonna have to let you go in a minute here. Can we talk about Chris Cuomo?
Yes, let's do it.
Did you have a relationship with him?
Chris was always good to me as a host, responsive, treated me with respect, enjoyed me coming on a show, used me a lot. I never saw anything when it comes to the sexual harassment or sexual misconduct allegations. That being said, after I had left CNN, I saw the Chris and Andrew show, right? Remember, this was when Chris was at home. He got COVID. Andrew Cuomo was still beloved because, he was the New York mayor taking on Trump's policies. And, that segment, maybe once, maybe twice is enough, but that became a recurring segment. And seeing that made me very uneasy, because I'm like, there should be a firewall. Chris has the highest rated show on CNN. He's a cable news host, but also considers himself as a reporter. He's very close to his brother. His brother is the freaking governor of New York. And Zucker, I'm sure, said, oh, this is good ratings, so let's do this yuck older brother ribbing on the younger brother. That's what it was, right? And made us feel really uncomfortable. Now, you find out that Chris said he was open and said, it's my brother, I'm going to help him. Fine. That, I think, was wrong. He should have been suspended for that. But then when the New York Attorney General released this treasure trove of information, it was beyond that, man. He was crafting narrative and strategy and working with the aides and using his immense privilege to hunt down scoops and essentially, let's be honest, try to dig up dirt on the female accusers. That, I think, was the line, and he should have been fired for that last week. And I think apparently it came to the sexual harassment allegation from the previous employee when he worked at ABC that finally did it. But it just goes to show you, the last thing I'll say on this is, who gets the second pass? Who gets the slap on the wrist? And who gets fired? Reza Aslan's gets fired because he calls Trump a shithead, and Trump then calls Zucker and says, you got to get rid of Reza. Octavian Nasser gets thrown under the bus for a comment on Israel. Mark Lamont Hill gets thrown under the bus. Ann Curry gets thrown under the bus. Who gets protected? Matt Lauer, Chris Cuomo. That, to me, is the bigger story.
Well, you just named the Expendables.
Yeah. And they come back 30 years later with good credit.
And, by the way, you said, the whole Andrew Cuomo, Chris Cuomo talking about COVID and everything made you uncomfortable, for sure. You know who made a lot of people uncomfortable is Andrew Cuomo alone. Such a fucking predator, man. Like, really fucked up dude. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing people don't realize. This is like very credible sexual misconduct allegations. Like, this is sleazy stuff.
Weird shit. Yeah, I mean,
power. That's the thing. Power gets to you. And of course, then people say this. And the last thing I'll say is, people on the left or people who aren't Republican, they say, well, the liberals, the Republicans get away with it. There's no bar with the Republicans, right? Like they'll get away with everything. They don't care. Like Bill O'Reilly, consistently, like. Well,
it doesn't. It's just a stupid thing. You have a value, have a moral line. It doesn't matter what someone's political ideology is. If my friend, well, it's different. You're my friend. It's a bad example. But like, if someone is a Democrat or a liberal, Republican, or conservative, it doesn't matter if they murder somebody. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're lying. It doesn't matter if they're dishonest. It doesn't matter. It's just, you have a principle. It doesn't. I mean, it's not.
And I think based on the principle, and the sad part is, for you and me, the standard and the principle should have been enough to let him go.
Yeah.
The reason why they let him go is because it made CNN and Zucker look bad, and enough people, and the rumors say that's Tapper and others, said that this is enough. You have to get rid of us. You have to get rid of Cuomo. That's the sad part, that it was bad for appearance and optics.
Yeah.
No, to just be, what's your standard? And then like Jeffrey Toobin is out there still doing his thing. He got a 6-month like slap on the wrist. And can you imagine if a woman just started like did what he did? I don't know, man. Or a person of color did it. I don't see that.
A woman would never masturbate accidentally on a Zoom.
This is true also. I apologize, women. You're the superior species, far smarter than us and actually have decency. But men, we're like, oh, I got 6 minutes.
Look, we look at our watches. We look around and see if there's any cameras or mics, and then we
take some sunlight. I smelled the rose. I got a little stiff. The kids are away. What should I do?
Kids are away.
Women would be like, yo, let me meditate. Let me do yoga. Let me take a nap. Let me like research things I need to get for the home.
No,
that's what I have to do. Men are like, let me just.
I mean, like, can you imagine? Like, forget about it. We're giving women too much credit, but like, can you imagine like a female like journalist that we could even like hypothetically name? Like, I'll say Laura Coates because she's one of my best friends and she doesn't mind me making fun of her. Imagine if like Laura Coates did something scandalous. You'd be like, she would never even. She would imagine it. So smart.
Yeah, you can't even imagine it. You can imagine Laura telling someone else not to do it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Jeffrey, hey, Jeffrey.
Put away.
Jeff. You can imagine her texting him. Jeff, you're on mute, Jeff.
Yeah. Yes.
Where you're like, men are like, huh?
Exactly.
No, that's the thing. That's my takeaway from the Cuomos is we need a standard. It has to be consistent.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say this as the darky Muslim guy who always plays the race card as the race hustler. Imagine if a woman or a person of color did it. Would they get the benefit of the doubt? And because he's good ratings and he's a Cuomo and he has access, man, he got away with a lot.
Yeah. I've been thinking about, I mean, like, imagine if women of color, someone of color did blank is like it's like this, they should name our generation that this week or last week, this kid, kills 4 classmates.
Crumblies.
And his dad bought him a pistol the week before, and Tim Wise was on, and he's like, granted, we're 2 white guys talking, but he's like, do you think black parents buy their sons pistols to bring, like, what? Like, This is a white pathology. And if a Muslim, like, if a brown person did, like, this kid made a clock. He made a clock, this Muslim kid.
Yeah, he's like a brilliant guy, brought a clock and it was ticking, and that's why they brought the like law enforcement, and they're like, all right, listen, this clock, it goes back, everything comes full circle. The suitcase, right? No, think about it. The demonization of Muslims and why it impacts us, the treatment of Ilhan, why am I more concerned, is because Ilhan becomes the avatar and stand-in for the rest of us.
Yes.
Muslim woman, black, first a refugee, right? She's the trifecta of all the boogeymen of the right wing. And so the way they attack her, normalize it, mainstream it, means that's what they think about us. And it goes back to the backpacks. It goes to Ahmed the clock boy. And meanwhile, this kid, Ethan Crumbley, was radicalized by his parents. Just look at the 2016 open letter. I'm sure you discussed it with Tim, where the mom, you sit there and you go, holy crap, this is a sneak preview of the future of the GOP. It's like an exquisite snapshot of what's going to happen. Where literally they're warning the parents, and the parents are like, just don't get caught next time when you're scrolling for ammo. Oh, you found this really dangerous notes, which seems like he's going to commit violence. We're not going to pick him up. Keep him at school. And right when they kept him at school, he goes in, takes out the gun, and kills 4 people. And then as he's killing 4 people, this country hates kids so much that there's a video of kids escaping through the window with their masks on.
Yep, I saw that.
It's
but
wild.
That's the kid with the alarm clock. That kid.
That kid. I mean,
that we caught him.
It could have gone tick, tick, boom.
Didn't Obama like invite him to White House? Like, sorry, I'm real sorry.
Yeah, NASA did. NASA was like, you want a job or like something? Or like, sorry, buddy. He's like, NASA's like, that's pretty amazing. You made this clock. And then like the right wing is like, it wasn't that impressive of a clock.
No, the right is now, offering Rittenhouse literally an internship and defending Crumbley's parents. Like, listen, and it's just like, but the point of Tim Wise's point was the whole, take a look at white pathology.
Absolutely. I mean, last question. Do you think, and I said this on another person's show, as these Crumbleys are going to get, they're going to get convicted and sentenced most likely, will they become martyrs and heroes for the GOP like the McCloskeys, Eddie Gallagher, and Kyle Rittenhouse.
No, but it's only because their last name is Crumbly, and it's so fun, and it sounds so harmless, and I think it's like a John Candy movie, like the Crumblies Christmas. Meh.
Who's afraid of Harry Crumbly?
Nobody.
That's an old school reference.
Yeah,
Who's afraid of
yeah.
Harry Crumb? But no,
Yeah.
but you know why? Because they're gonna go after parents' rights. So I
Right.
might be more cynical than most, but I think you will see a campaign to, in a way, make these folks seem like martyrs, just like they did with Ashley Babbitt, who was radicalized and
Right.
killed. But
Yeah. No, it's not too far fetched.
yeah, that's where we are, man. But thankfully,
Be-
but at least you know, as long as a Muslim doesn't have a backpack, we'll be okay.
I'm glad I'm here with you.
No, man, this is great. That we stayed overtime, but it went fast.
Thank
And people should know that me and Pete never tells me what we're going to talk about. That's what's so cool about it. We just sit and riff.
Yeah. I mean, if only we could commit to doing our own thing. I mean, it would be, we're so good.
It'll be fun, man. Let's get paid for it.
Let's go. Wajad Ali, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me, as always, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.